Well, thank you for staying with the business today. We are back and we are talking about poultry value chain. I believe when we hear the name Kenchik, of course, you've bought chicken from Kenchik. You've even bought fries from Kenchik. But now joining us is Jim Tozer, who's the managing director Kenchik. Well, basically not going to be talking about the fries, but we'll be talking about particular chicken. And how farmers are making sure that at least they are working towards making this product valuable enough for the market. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Pleasure.
All right. So, Jim, let's get right into the conversation. Let's look at poultry farming in Kenya. From the moment you became the managing director, Kenchik, especially here in Kenya, up to now, how is the industry and what is it that can be done in order for at least, especially the poultry industry?
Well, thank you. I actually joined Kenchik back in 2005, so nearly been here 20 years now.
Wow.
But took over the position back in 2020. What was interesting at the very outset is that the opportunity for poultry farming was very much under potential at the time. And I think it's really wise to put a sort of context into it. But if we look at Kenya today, we're probably eating no more than sort of 2 kilos of chicken per head per annum. Whereas if we go to somewhere like, our neighbours further south in South Africa, they're eating up to 39 kilos of chicken per head per annum. It's partly a price issue, partly a traditional issue of what people have eaten historically. But the opportunity is there for high quality digestible protein, which we all need as our daily dietary intake.
Right. And now when we look at working with farmers, because we have poultry farmers in Kenya, of course, and you work with some farmers in Kenya, or you work with farmers in Kenya. What is it that sets them apart, and what makes them now eligible to be part of farmers who rear their chicken for Kenchik?
Okay, so we have about 54,000 farmers on our database, which we've been in contact over the years.
Spread across the country?
Spread across the whole of the country, yeah.
Okay.
And we interact with a huge amount of them. Some are still not in business today, but that's our database. And we have 2 facets to the company, really. One is that the majority of our business is actually day-old chick sales to smaller scale farmers across the whole of the country. And we operate an out scheme for them in terms of support, management and technical support. We also have about 45 farmers who have been with us for a very long time, some of them up to 30 years, and they grow chicken on contract to Kenchik under our set of systems and processes, management regimes, specifically so we can meet our customers' requirements as well.
All right. So you as Kenchik, when you look at a farmer who's doing poultry farming, what are the requirements that they need in order for them to become part? Because someone might be watching and saying, okay, I have chicken, but I would want also to be involved in this, and also Kenchik to help me get to the market.
Well, part of that would be size and scale. So we are looking at farmers with growing a sort of a minimum of 10,000 birds in a cycle for us. We would very much look at their housing and infrastructure and what they have at present. Or if there was an incumbent farmer who wanted to join us and we had the need as well, we would help them lay out exactly what is required in terms of the house structure, the kit, the equipment, the water lines, the feed, the biosecurity measures which we'd want to put in place with them. And if they can fulfill that criteria, then we're happy to go.
All right, and also let's look at another very serious issue that usually happens, especially for a farmer who deals with poultry. We have the flu, the bird flu that usually comes. What are some of the challenges, especially when it comes to, now this is the amount of chicken that a farmer is supposed to be producing for you, and also, but now the flu comes, takes over, kills almost 90% of the chicken that the farmer has. So how do you deal with this?
Well, first and foremost, touch wood, we have not had bird flu or avian influenza in this part of the world.
Okay.
It's a global issue. It's almost an endemic issue across the world. in order to mitigate such circumstances there, and I think we should take it back that bird flu could be a catastrophe if it came to sort of the eastern part of Africa. But where we look at other diseases which can have such a devastating effect as well on the poultry industry, there's very clear areas around vaccinations. I mean, we all have vaccinations to protect us when we're young, and so we operate a very well prescribed vaccination policy that generally will protect birds from a disease which probably could kill 90% but has no effect or impact today because of understanding virology and etiology of diseases, that we can mitigate all those issues, thus protecting the farmer and the economy and the poultry industry.
Right, and also even still on this, when you look at antimicrobial resistance, antimicrobial principles, and the other day IPC recognized Kenchik as one of the companies in Africa like looking at these principles very seriously. So when you talk about antimicrobial principles and you as a company, when you look at this, what does it entail and how were you able to get to this?
Well, first and foremost, we were honoured with the stewardship accreditation by IPC, but we've really taken this back a lot further than that. So all the way through our systems and processes and over many years, we've always adhered to what we would call international specific standards, which we recognise allows poultry to grow without diseases. And that really comes down to a set of clear principles on what you do. And it starts with management, your housing, how you ventilate, good clean water. I mean, our birds drink the water which we can consume. I mean, what else would you give a bird, you know, or an animal for that? High quality feed, which is specifically balanced to meet the bird's requirements. And we also, what we tend to do is we set out the principles for farmers. They very much, if they adhere to those standards, should have no issue with disease. And of course, I've gone back to vaccination. If we vaccinate the birds correctly, they won't get sick. There would not be a need for any form of antibiotic ever. And antibiotics, unfortunately, are there quite often to mask the symptoms of poor management. So if we put in proper principles of management, there should be little or no reason. Sometimes animals and birds and even ourselves get sick, and we have to prescribe the right products to cure it. I think the other area really around antibiotic and use and antimicrobial resistance is that we really don't have a framework particularly well in many parts of the world, including here, of how we would identify and thus prescribe antibiotics if and when used, and the correct type. So there's quite a sort of an ad hoc, use whatever is available, and it's the first choice of drug rather than understanding really the principles about what might have caused the issues in the first place. So we would not prescribe at all until we understood exactly what our birds might be undergoing. We would test for our laboratory to identify what the issue is and then prescribe the correct product for our own farms or farmers. And you know, we set this out a long time ago, and one of the other key areas, and it comes to it as well, is very much linked with, you know, One Health and zoonotic diseases, which can move between humans and animals as well. But also, you know, the real critical thing we see today is that the molecules of antibiotics which are used for humans are very similar or the same for animals. And irresponsible use leads to that form of resistance. But if we go back to birds, and it doesn't matter, any animal, whether it's a dairy animal, a beef, sheep, or obviously poultry, if we look after that animal in the correct way, how we would want to be looked after, you know, there are 5 key principles of animal welfare. If we do all of the right things, access to clean water and food, freedom to exhibit, you know, their normal characteristics of how they behave, yes? A safe environment, good handling. If we carry out those, you will not have the need to treat an animal with antibiotics. And funnily enough, they will thrive, they will grow. We've proven in our industry, in our business in Kenchik, that we can get optimum growth, reach the potential of the animal with zero use of antibiotics because of our principles of animal welfare, good stewardship, good agricultural practice, makes all the difference. It's an investment, you could argue, to start with, but at the end of the day, it pays the dividends afterwards.
Right.
And that, sorry, that last bit is so critical, really, and maybe we'll lead on to it, because we have to allow consumers to understand how animals are produced and that their food is safe and trustworthy. And I think it's really important that consumers should ask the provenance of their food, where it came from,
yes,
how it was treated, how it was reared, yes? Very important. And hence our farm to fork policy, where we can trace back all of our products right back to the origins, and allow a consumer to essentially see the whole chain throughout the life cycle, and even the parents' life cycle of where the egg came from to hatch into the chick.
All right, very, very important insights right there. When you look at also the training of farmers who do, whether it's livestock, whether it's poultry, when it comes to training and on how they need to be taken care, the management systems when it comes to poultry, also livestock, do you think there's a gap there? Because one area of the country might be doing a different thing from the other area of the country.
I think, yeah, there probably is a knowledge gap there. I mean, the advent of the internet and the mobile phone has been fantastic for the industry, and I think in general, because it allows access to vast and well understood information about management and poultry rearing. One of the big difficulties is that, I mean, we, for instance, operate, we've got over 60 people in the field who, across the whole of Kenya, well dissipated, who offer face-to-face and on-farm technical training and management training. We also run a series of seminars every week. Within Nairobi, there's one every week in our office, to really break down the rudiments of good poultry husbandry and farming. The trouble is we can't reach everybody. We have farmers, growing 100, 200 chicks, and I said, on a database there's 50,000. But reaching all of them and being able to give sort of one-on-one good management expertise is difficult. But webinars, now the advent of apps and digital technology is certainly improving it at a vast rate. But it also means that if they have issues, they will run, quite often to the local agrovet, and maybe they are prescribed or given something which they actually don't need, and that is another issue.
All right, and also when it comes to dealing with different farmers or particular farmers, especially in the rural areas, especially farmers who know this is how I've been rearing my chicken, this is what I've been doing, and they've been thriving, and maybe some of the practices that they are using are not part of what is supposed to what is right. So how do you deal with such farmers? Because I believe when you work with very many farmers, there are challenges like that. So what usually happens?
Sometimes it's difficult to change somebody who thinks or appears that they are doing well. I always think there's always an opportunity with farmers in agriculture to improve. If somebody is getting a good performance, we would always look at their detailed performance to identify key areas which are great and positive, and where there's an opportunity, I think, to add more value to their business. And we do that on a regular basis. So, understanding growth, mortality, feed consumption, water consumption is a very good indicator of how we can identify where the opportunities lie with farmers. And certainly, if you look at what we do in Kenchik as a business, we have overseas visitations from some of the genetic suppliers who audit us, as well as I have veterinarians, not just locally, but consultants as well, who have sort of a global understanding of knowledge and the latest cutting-edge techniques, and those are the ones we always want to bring to the farmers and the poultry farmers of Kenya.
Right. Even as we are speaking broadly about this and trying to look at some of the ways in which this particular type of industry can move forward. Now with the, you mentioned about the digital technology that has come in, how has technology advancement helped to increase your market access?
I think it's almost in its infantile stage. We know the opportunity, we know the potential. First of all, it's obviously building a credible database. We require farmers to be able to give their details back to us, their inputs. But we are at this moment in time, actually, we're generating an app which can identify farmers' issues if they put all of their growing details, their management details in, and it will quickly pick out, almost through AI, generative AI, the opportunity of identifying where there are issues with their production and their methodology. I think, as I said, there's so much more that can be done in that area. And I'm very excited. I'm very excited because the adoption of sort of digital and AI in this part of the world is leapfrogging, you know, what we're picking up in other parts of the world. It's being adopted at a very fast rate within Africa. And it's exciting times for farmers. It really is.
Right. Even as we are saying it's really an exciting time for farmers, let us look at a farmer who wants to join the Kenchik type of franchise, and they want to now supply chicken or be part of it. What is the step-by-step formula for doing this, or what do you usually use to grade the farmers? Because someone might say, okay, I can't be able to come to Nairobi. I'm maybe in a different county. I'm maybe in Kisii County. I'm in another different county. So what does someone do in order for them to be eligible to be part of Kenchik?
Yeah, it's a good question, because really the distance from where we process our birds is very critical. So we work generally with a sort of a circumference outside of that area. But we would, our sort of step-by-step is to identify the area. If a customer or a farmer is within that area, we would look at his land. We wouldn't want it on a really small plot really going forward because of the biosecurity issues, because backyard chicken being very local. Good supply of water. And then we would work with them to build a budget if they're starting from scratch about the type of structure and the investment which would be required going forward in order to future-proof their business for the long term, because the investments now really for the future are quite hefty. It's a very good question about people further or farmers spread across the country, and I think that is where there's a levelling up opportunity, which I think us within the industry, with government and various institutions have a great opportunity to develop poultry growing sectors and hubs throughout the country. Obviously that requires processing plants, identifying customers within the region which can supply. Ultimately, it all comes down to the market. And if we're not consuming enough chicken, you could say it's the chicken and egg, which one comes first. But at the moment, you know, we've seen a slight change really over the last 3 or 4 years. The drought's impacted the overall livestock industry, certainly impacting upon the beef. And whereas we always remember chicken being, you know, the most expensive protein source, we've seen that change happen now, where it is actually, where it should be cheaper than other red meats and other protein sources. And I think that's a really excitable time. As we see GDP grow in countries, we see chicken consumption increasing as well. There's a direct correlation. Overall, though, we need to still work around areas of cost of production and, you know, and feed costs. Maize and soya, which are the raw protein and energy needs for a diet, have still been very volatile, and certainly since COVID and what's happening globally has not helped that. But that has been a real hindrance to the growth and development, and I believe the consumption of chicken. So there's a lot of fundamentals in there as well, and it goes back to systems and structures within the economies of growing. It also comes down to standards. As I said, we adhere to this, you know, a global level of standard. We supply international retail chains, hotels, and obviously fast food outlets. And those standards which they require are the same anywhere else in the world where they operate as well.
Okay.
So whatever Kenchik produces has to adhere to a global standard. And I think within Kenya, we have an opportunity with government and bodies to really set some good regulatory standards, which means that consumers can, access and eat healthy, well-trusted protein products like chicken.
Mm-hmm. All right. Even as we come to a conclusion of this conversation, the recognition by IPC going forward, what does this mean? What does this mean for you? When you look at the doors that are going to open, what does this mean?
Well, I mean, for us, it was fantastic. It was almost a stamp of approval of what we've always been doing, and it enabled us to be even better. We were very lucky. We had interviews with IPC, and we worked with them. It fits in really well with our purpose, as a business, which is really is to enable shared prosperity through sustainable food production. And you can look at that in all ways, but sustainable food production is something which can continue for the future. Our principle's always been there. It was an endorsement. I think for us as Kenchik, though, we've taken it as being a leader, but really is a heavy weight on our shoulders. And I think now is the opportunity for us to get farmers, and we're already working with farmers around the IPC stewardship to prove to them that good management techniques don't need antibiotics, hence reducing the usage in AMR. I would like to think that other industry players can now join us in this, and we can create a much better movement. And we're taking it further forward as we speak.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Jim Tozer right there, who is a managing director at Kenchik, speaking to us about poultry value chain and what we need to do in order for us to be right with this industry. All right, we've come to the end of this edition of Business Today. My name is Kelvin Yakundi. Stick around. BUKTN is coming up next.